Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for heart-touching stories. Don't forget to subscribe and let's begin.
I had rehearsed the conversation 100 times in my head. I knew exactly what I was going to say, exactly how I was going to say it, and I was absolutely certain my grandfather would be proud of me. I was wrong about all of it. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menus had no prices, the kind of place where if you had to ask, you probably shouldn't be there. Grandpa Gerald had chosen it, of course. At 81 years old, with a fortune built over 6 decades in commercial real estate and private equity, he had never lost his taste for the finest things. His silver cufflinks probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. His watch definitely did. I smoothed my blazer as the maitre d' led me to the table. Grandpa Gerald was already seated, as he always was, early to everything, a habit he credited with half his success. Looked up from his water glass and smiled, and for a moment he was just my grandfather again. The man who used to sneak me extra dessert when my parents weren't looking. The man who taught me to play chess at age 6 and let me win exactly once then never again. Ellie, he said, rising slightly from his chair as I approached. Even at 81 the manners never slipped. Grandpa, I kissed his cheek and sat across from him. The white tablecloth was so starched it could have stood on its own. You look thin, he said, which was his version of hello, I've missed you. You say that every time. Because every time I mean it. He studied me over the rim of his water glass. You're working too hard, I laughed. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Waiter arrived. We ordered him the dry-aged ribeye medium rare because he had ordered the same thing at every steakhouse for 60 years and saw no reason to change. Me the salmon, though I barely registered the choice. My mind was already on the speech I'd been practicing. We made small talk through the bread basket. His golf game, my cousin Devin's new baby, the family trip someone was supposedly planning for the holidays that no one actually believed would happen. And then when the appetizers arrived and the waiter retreated, Grandpa Gerald set down his fork and looked at me with those sharp gray eyes that had never, not once in my memory, missed a single thing. Tell me what's on your mind, he said. You've had that look since you walked in. I took a breath. I wanted to tell you in person I quit my job at Harmon and Associates. He didn't flinch. When? 3 weeks ago. You're just telling me now. I needed to be sure first, sure that I was doing the right thing. I leaned forward slightly. Grandpa, I've been working on something, a tech platform. It connects independent interior designers with mid-range residential clients. There's a real gap in the market. The high-end clients have always had access to great design, but the middle market gets stuck with cookie-cutter options or overpriced consultants who treat them like they're not worth the time. I could feel myself speeding up the way I always did when I talked about it. I've already got 12 beta users, 3 of them have converted to paying subscriptions. The unit economics are Ellie, something in his voice stopped me. Not harsh, Grandpa Gerald was rarely harsh, but firm in a way that made my rehearsed words dissolve. Long have you been at that apartment on Meridian? He asked. The question was so unexpected that I blinked. What, the apartment? Almost 4 years now, He cut a small piece of his steak and chewed it thoughtfully. And what do you pay in rent? 3,800 a month. I frowned. Set down his knife and fork, and folded his hands on the table with the quiet deliberateness of a man who had delivered difficult news many times in his life and had learned exactly how to pace it. You pay 3,800, he said. The building charges 15,000. Restaurant noise, the clinking glasses, the low murmur of other conversations, the distant sound of a piano seemed to recede, like someone had turned down the volume on the world. I'm sorry, been paying the difference every month for the past 4 years, Grandpa Gerald said. $11,200 a month, sometimes a little more when the building added amenity fees. I stared at him. My brain was doing that thing where it receives information and simply refuses to process it, bouncing it back like a return letter. That's not, I stopped. The building manager told me the unit was 3,800. I saw the lease, I signed the lease. You signed a lease, he said. The lease I arranged. You arranged my lease? He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable, which for Grandpa Gerald meant a nearly imperceptible tightening around his eyes. When you moved to the city after graduate school, your mother called me. She was worried about you living somewhere unsafe. You were being very independent, refusing any help. You wouldn't even let your father co-sign for an apartment. Because I wanted to do it myself, I said, and my voice sounded strange to me, higher than normal, like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. I know, and I respected that. I still respect it. He picked up his fork again, then put it back down. But you're my granddaughter and you were 24 years old, and the neighborhoods you were looking at, he paused. I own several properties in this city, Ellie. I have relationships with building management across most of the premium residential market. I made a phone call. I arranged for you to see that apartment at a price you could afford, and I covered the rest. 4 years, 48 months. 48 months of waking up in my beautiful apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its renovated kitchen and its doorman who remembered my name and my coffee order. 48 months of feeling proud of myself for landing such a great deal on a place right in the heart of the city. 48 months of telling my friends, oh, I just got lucky, I found it at the right time. I had not gotten lucky. I had been subsidized. Much? I asked quietly. Total, he didn't hesitate. He had clearly already done the math. Just over $540,000. I put my hand over my mouth. Not because I was going to cry, I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do, but because I needed a second to keep my face from doing something I would regret in this very expensive, very quiet restaurant. Grandpa. My voice came out surprisingly steady. Why are you telling me this now? Because you just told me you quit your job to start a business. He said it simply without judgment, but his gray eyes were steady on mine. And before you build something on a foundation, you should know what that foundation is actually made of. I looked down at my salmon. I had not touched it. You're saying I don't have the foundation I thought I had. I'm saying you have a different one than you thought. He paused. There's a distinction there. I looked up. Because from where I'm sitting, everything I thought I'd built for myself, my independence, my budget, my sense of what I could and couldn't afford, all of it was based on a lie. Kindness, a deception. He was quiet for a moment. In 50 years of knowing this man, I had never once won a starring contest with him. I didn't win this one either. Right, he said at last. It was both. Admission surprised me. Grandpa Gerald did not apologize easily. He came from a generation and a tax bracket that tended to view generosity as its own justification, the logic being that if the outcome was good, the method required no defense. For him to acknowledge the other side of what he'd done was not nothing. I pushed a piece of salmon around my plate. Does Mom know? Your mother asked me to help. She didn't know the specifics. Dad, no. So it had been the two of them, him and my mother, and 4 years of Sunday phone calls where she asked how the apartment was and I told her I loved it, never knowing she was asking with the knowledge of what it had cost. I filed that away. That was a separate conversation for a separate day. Why now? I asked again. You could have let me keep not knowing. I could have, he agreed. But you came here tonight to tell me you're starting a company, that you're going to build something. He leaned forward slightly, and for a moment he wasn't my grandfather. He was the man who had sat across negotiating tables from some of the sharpest minds in American business for 5 decades. You can't build something real on a false accounting of your own life. You'd be making every projection, every risk calculation, every decision about what you can sustain, all of it based on numbers that aren't true. I opened my mouth. And beyond the practical, he continued, I know you. I have known you since the day you were born, Ellie. You are the most stubborn, most self-reliant person in a family that is not short on stubborn, self-reliant people. If you built this company and it succeeded and you found out afterward it would hollow out the win, you would never fully trust it. I hated that he was right. I hated it with every cell in my body. So what now? I asked. Am I supposed to pay you back? I don't want your money. Then what do you want? He picked up his wine glass, a burgundy he'd ordered without consulting the menu because he never needed to consult the menu. I want you to know the truth, and then I want you to decide what you're going to do with it. We ate in silence for a while, not the uncomfortable kind or not entirely. There was something almost companionable in it, the way there sometimes is when two people have just said something real to each other and need a moment to let it settle. I thought about the apartment, the morning light through those floor-to-ceiling windows, the way I'd felt the first time I handed over a rent check I'd earned myself or thought I had, the quiet pride of it. I thought about how I'd told the story to dates, to friends, to colleagues. Oh, I just found a great deal, and how that story was going to have to change now, at least in my own head. I thought about the business plan sitting in my laptop bag, the spreadsheets I'd built and rebuilt, the market analysis. The 12 beta users who had trusted me with their real frustrations about a real problem, the 3 who had pulled out their credit cards, none of that was fake. That part at least was mine. Platform, I said eventually. It's real, the problem is real. I've validated it with actual users, not just surveys. Grandpa Gerald looked up. Tell me more about the unit economics, so I did. For the next 40 minutes over the remains of our dinner and into the dessert course, creme brulee for him, which he ate with the focused satisfaction of a man who had never once felt guilty about dessert, I laid it out. The customer acquisition cost, the lifetime value projections, the competitive landscape, the reason a platform model worked better than a marketplace model for this particular category. He asked good questions. Genuinely good questions, not the soft kind that relatives ask to seem supportive. He poked at my churn assumptions. He challenged my pricing model. He asked who my third-party designer vetting partner was going to be and raised an eyebrow when I admitted I hadn't fully solved that yet. That's your biggest vulnerability, he said. Quality control at scale. You need an answer for that before you go anywhere near investors. I know. Do you have a technical co-founder? Talking to someone. Former Airbnb engineer. We haven't signed anything yet, he nodded slowly. I know 3 people who could be useful to you. Not as investors, I'm not offering you money before you assume, but as advisors. One ran the product division at a major real estate platform before it went public. One is a designer herself, built and sold a firm. And one is mean as a snake when it comes to spotting holes in a business model, which means he will make you better. I looked at him. Why would you do that if you're not offering money? Because you don't need my money, he said. You need to build something that can stand up without it, otherwise you'll spend the rest of your career wondering. He paused. Sound familiar? It did. It sounded exactly like the conversation we'd been having for the past hour, just translated into the language of the business rather than the apartment. Grandpa, I said carefully, I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly. Do my best. There anything else, any other way you've been arranging things, my job at Harmon, my graduate school scholarship? He met my eyes without flinching. No, the apartment was the only time. Your mother was frightened and I moved too quickly and I told myself it was temporary, and then 4 years passed. A pause. The job at Harmon you got yourself, your scholarship you earned. Your 12 beta users found you because of a problem you identified and a solution you built. Those are yours. I breathed out slowly. Apartment, I said, I'd like to pay you back, not all at once, obviously, but over time. For you, for me, I held his gaze. You said I can't build on a false foundation, so I need to make this part of the ledger real. I'll pay you back what I can when I can for as long as it takes. You don't have to accept it, but I'm going to send it. He looked at me for a long moment. Then for the first time all evening he smiled, not the polite smile he wore in public, but the real one, the one that only came out for chess games and secret desserts and moments when I did something that reminded him of himself. All right, he said, I'll accept it. Mater D came with the check. Grandpa Gerald paid it without looking at the total. As he always did, we walked out into the cool evening air together and he took my arm the way he had when I was small, when the world seemed enormous and he seemed larger than all of it. Business, he said as his car pulled up. Don't let the revelation tonight shake your belief in it. The revelation is about the past. The business is about what you build next. I know, I said, and call your mother. I know that too. He got into the car. I stood on the sidewalk and watched the taillights disappear into the city traffic. And then I stood there a little longer, just breathing, letting the cool air do what it does. $540,000. 4 years of a life I thought I'd built, sitting on a foundation I hadn't known was there, and also 12 beta users, 3 paying subscribers. A business plan that had survived 40 minutes of interrogation from the sharpest mind I'd ever known. I took out my phone and opened a new note. At the top, I typed, "What is actually mine?" and then I started writing. The company launched publicly 14 months later. In the first week, we onboarded 200 designers. I paid my grandfather back in full 4 years after that dinner. He donated every cent to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students studying architecture and design. He never mentioned the apartment again. Neither did I, except once in the origin story I tell at speaking engagements, when I talk about the night I learned that knowing the truth about where you started is the only honest way to know how far you've actually gone.